Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Wilbur Crummer. They used to call me Major Crummer. During the Great War to save the Union, I was with the 45th Regiment of Illinois Volunteers. Served proudly in Union Blue till they shot me at Gettysburg. I got a plug through the chest that ruined my day, and the surgeon said that you're a goner, take him out and put him under the tree. I lived for another 54 years to tell about it, and I've been talking about the Civil War ever since, because this is the Grand Army of the Republic memorial plot here at Forest Home. A lot of major cemeteries had a plot for Union veterans who didn't have a family plot in the area, and so basically this is what they used it for. And I am proudly planted right under this siege mortar here. After the war, I wrote a book, and I gave lectures about the Civil War. And the premise of my book and my lectures was that it was Illinois troops who won the war for the Union. I mean, maybe we had a little bit of help from the other Midwesterners, from Michigan and Minnesota and Wisconsin and Indiana and Iowa. But the premise is true. It was the Westerners, the Western armies, that won the Civil War. Well, the Union was dithering around in Virginia for 4 years, suffering heavy casualties and humiliating defeats. It was the Westerners that conquered the South. I mean, the Eastern soldiers, city boys from Philadelphia and New York, you could dress them up like soldiers, put them in fancy uniforms and make them march straight. But they never really learned how to fight like we could. We Westerners look scruffy by comparison. I mean, our officers were always telling us, clean up your act, look military, okay. But we know how to fight. We knew how to fight, and we didn't mind going toe-to-toe with the rebels. So here's how we won the war. Think 1861. The war breaks out in April. Red start, of course. Two crucial states were sitting on the fence. You had Missouri and you had Kentucky. Both were large slave states, second in population only to Virginia. If they had gone south, no pun intended, it would have been a major disaster for the Union. I mean, Lincoln himself, when asked early in the war, "Do you think God is on our side?" He replied, "Yeah, I hope he is, but I've got to have Kentucky." And so anyway, we Westerners, we Illinoisans, made it sure that the people in those great states of Missouri and Kentucky, we persuaded them, friendly and otherwise, to stay in the Union, and they stayed during the war. First big accomplishment. Next year, 1862, what was happening back in the East? One humiliating defeat after another for the Union. Lee was running circles around. What were we doing in the West? Well, Grant decided to take the war into the Confederacy. Why not? So he marched into Tennessee, little place called Fort Donelson. Most people have never heard of it. It was the first major Union victory of the war. We bagged 15,000 rebels and all their equipment. Important, yes. Then we pushed on deep into Tennessee, down in the southern part of the state, a little town called Shiloh. You probably heard of Shiloh. The Rebs there hit us with everything they had. They gave us the best shot they had. It's a bloody battle. I was there, but on the second day we routed them from the field. Then we marched into northern Mississippi and northern Alabama. Next year, 1863. All everybody wants to talk about is Gettysburg. I mean, Gettysburg was nice. Was a victory, I'll admit. But General Lee, when he marched away from Gettysburg, he had his troops in battle order. He had all of his baggage, and his men were snarling over their shoulders, spoiling for another fight. What was happening the same week as Gettysburg? Vicksburg, my siege mortar from Vicksburg. We rounded up 30,000, we trapped them at Vicksburg, 30,000 rebel troops. We captured them all. We took 150 cannons. We took them out of the war forever. Which was more important, Gettysburg or Vicksburg? To boot, at Vicksburg, we captured the last Confederate citadel in the Mississippi River. And so that cut off the Confederacy in the West. It also gave full use of the river to Union transports. Strategic victory, but also we bagged a whole army. And then at the end of the year, end of '63, we marched down to Chattanooga and went through their lines in epic battles. Missionary Ridge, Lookout Mountain, nobody really talks about those anymore. Huge battles, hugely important. It broke the door open into Georgia. 1864 rolls in. 1864. A bad year for the Union Army in Virginia, I tell you. Casualty rates were astronomical. Grant was attacking and attacking. Lee was fending him off. The North was seriously getting war weary. There were draft riots in Philadelphia and New York. Lincoln honestly thought for several months that he was going to lose the 1864 election to a peace candidate running as a Democrat. But what happened? Marching through Georgia, okay, you have Sherman that says, hey, I can do something about this. Union Army with the Illinois boys in the lead, maneuver, outfight the Confederates, and take Atlanta. That was huge. Atlanta was the heart and soul of the old Confederacy, the Deep South. It was also an arsenal, supply point, communications, railroads coming in from all sides. So, we take Atlanta, we burn Atlanta. That was arguably the day that Dixie died. Their morale plummeted. And then to rub it in, he marched to the sea. If you're if you are a rebel sympathizer, you will still remember that if you're a Southerner. The infamous March to the Sea. Crushed the economy, wiped out the plantations, destroyed the communications networks. Huge. Lincoln won his election. Union morale soared. 65, toward the end of the war. Sherman was checking his list of states to be conquered. He looks, South Carolina. Okay, let's head for it. South Carolina. Illinois boys the lead. South Carolina. Which state was the first to secede? Which state was proud of it? South Carolina. Which state started the darn war in the first place? It was payback time for South Carolina. The economy was pillaged, plantations destroyed, the capital burned to the ground. It felt good. Then we moved into North Carolina. It was toward the end of the war. Sherman knew it. He treated them quite a bit more gently than he did South Carolina. North Carolina was one of the last ones to secede, by the way. So what he did was basically round up the Confederate armies of the West, the remnants of the armies. But all you ever hear of is Appomattox. Lee surrendering 30,000 troops to Grant at Appomattox. Nobody's ever heard of Bennett's Farm in Durham, South Carolina, or North Carolina. That's where Sherman had 90,000 surrendered to him by Confederate General Johnson. 90,000, 30,000. Do the math. If you're also doing the math, you can put up a scorecard with the Western armies, states conquered in one side, Eastern armies on the other side. So in the Western column, give us credit for Kentucky, Missouri. Then give us credit for Tennessee because we took Tennessee. Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. We'll concede Virginia to the Easterners. Do the math again. And that's how we won the war. That's my story and I'm sticking to it.